I'm going to be working on this cell phone case. I'm using the Lanheim, and it's just a Samsung, I believe it's the S20 Ultra. That's the one I have. I forget the model. It's sad to say, but I did. And I've chosen this case because it has a recessed area right here where the leather can fit into. And I'm going to show you the process I followed to do your own custom case. Because you're going to, if you decide to do something like this, you're going to want to make your own pattern and then use that pattern to actually create the case. I was originally going to do a fold over, but I decided against it because this phone already is massive and it just didn't fit in my pocket very well. So I'm going to do just a back plate. So here we go. So the first thing I did, I took a piece of paper, this is graph paper, and I used a pencil and I etched along the back of that case where the leather would actually fit into. Slowly just scribbled with that pencil until I had the general shape. And you can see the one I did on the right there is the one that I actually used, but I tried to do this video before and it didn't work out quite right. This happens all the time. I'm horrible at making videos, so I just sort of laugh it off and then redo it if I have to. So there you have it. I've now etched the basic shape or pattern, and then I will take some scissors and I will cut it out. It's fairly straightforward. I'm starting with the sides first because I can just cut them with a ruler. And then I'll use scissors to do the round section right there. And that I'll just do it by eye. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not trying to do it perfect. I mean, some of these experts are amazing. They can do something just to perfection, and I admire them for it. But as an amateur, I'm shooting for something that's suitable. I'm not shooting for perfection itself. So there you go. That's the basic pattern for the case, as you can see. Now, these are actual... This is a special paper called Parapi Joko makes it, and it is for heat press. It's an acrylic. You can see I printed it out in the mirror mode so that when you actually heat press it onto the leather, it heat presses correctly. And I've done this, I bought this graphic, or I got a commercial license for it. I'm not providing it for this video. I would suggest doing your own. But I actually paid for a commercial license for this particular cat and then made it work for the project. So I've got my little square of heat press. I had extras in case I needed more than one. So now I go to the heat press. I've laid out my piece of leather. I've taken the little square, I put it down, that's waxed paper in between. I set the temperature at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I let the heat press heat up the way it should. I set the timer for 40 seconds, and you'll see here this particular leather, which is a form of chromium, worked out beautifully. Not all leather does. Watch my video on heat pressing onto leather if you want to see for yourself. So now that I've got the actual piece, I did two of them as a backup just in case. So I would have an extra if the one I ended up screwing it up in some way, which is not uncommon. Oftentimes when you're doing your own custom patterns and designs, you're going to do something that sucks. I've had, I think, 2 different examples of something I tried. It didn't work, and I tossed them. So here I am. I'm now setting the pattern to the leather. I did the actual graphic first, and I'll actually do the leather pattern next. And I'm just going to use a pen here. It's not going to matter because I'm going to have to bevel those edges anyway. So I'll draw around the pattern. You can use pencil or a marking pen, but I have a hard time seeing it. So I'm just using a black pen, which is probably a no-no by most people's estimation. But the trimming I'm going to do, that black won't show up. And I usually like to do a black along the edge anyway. So now that I've drawn out the pattern, I'm going to use my rotary cutter to just cut the straight edges. Looks like I need a new blade on that. Doesn't cut very well like that. If you have to go more than once, then your blade's dull. And rather than take the time to replace it, I just kept going. Jeez. You see there, I nicked a little bit too much on the end there. And that happens sometimes. But again, I'm just an amateur. I'm not going to try to do perfection. And I'm working out where I want the credit card holder to go. Now this is a fairly thick piece of leather. It's about I'd say it's about a 5 or a 6 ounce at least. They go by ounces, and I honestly don't know why. It makes no sense to me why they would use ounces to determine the thickness of leather. Yeah, no sense. Okay, so now I'm going to be cutting along that little round section, and I find it's a little harder to do if you try to razor blade it. So I use these tools that I bought a cheap set of. I think I spent, maybe $15 for them. And they're already rusting because there's these cheap Chinese-made stamps, and half of them are already bad. They're dull and rusty, and but I use them anyway because I don't have the money to buy better tools. And you'll find that with leather, that the tools you use a lot are the ones that you replace with really good ones for down the road. The cheapies, you sometimes just the stuff you don't do very often, oftentimes you just keep the cheapies. And then when it comes time, just buy another set of cheapies. And that's one thing China is good for, is producing really inexpensive tools for those projects you don't do very often. And I am limited on how much time I have to do these projects, so I'm only able to do them so often. You see, it's not perfect. It's a little off on the top there. I clipped a little bit too much, but yeah, it'll turn out okay. Not perfect, but and I'm making modifications along the edge there, and then I'm gonna have to do a little bit of trimming. It's inevitable. This leather is a little bit hard to trim with a razor blade because of the thickness of it. And my razor blades are sharp, but they're not like the best quality. I buy them, in the quantity of 100, so that whenever one gets dull, I can toss it and just grab another one. I don't use a blade for very long because with leather, it dulls it really fast. And if you're going to do a lot of leather, you're going to buy blades in quantity. You're going to have to. So I'm sitting here. I'm still trying to get it trimmed so that it fits along that edge. Trying to figure out the best way to do it. I got that little bit of a ridge where it didn't quite trim very well, but it's because those cheap Chinese-made stamps just aren't very good. So there we go. I got my light on. I should have been using a magnifying lens for this, but I didn't. Sorry you can't see it. Sometimes that happens with this camera. I'm basically just trimming that edge with a razor blade. And that blade is new, so that I could make sure that, that it would cut straight. Because it sucks when you can't get it to cut right. So you can see I've trimmed in a little bit more. I still have to trim that one edge there, and a little bit on the bottom of that round, as I call it. Almost there. I still have to trim around the little edges, which I will use a blade for as well. Some of this stuff can be a little bit tedious when you're doing it. But, if you take your time and do it right, you'll enjoy the result a lot better. Okay, I got to do a little bit more trimming on the inside of that. Oftentimes when you're pattern drafting, you're coming up with your own designs, you're going to face challenges because a lot of these experts have taken the time and taken out a lot of the guesswork, a lot of the problems you're going to face, and the methods they show you are going to help you to do their particular patterns. And I think it's cool. I think it's great that they do that. But anytime you're doing your own work, your own patterns, your own creative projects, you're going to run into little issues that, you know, going to be something you have to just sort of adapt to. And the trick is just to learn techniques. Learn techniques and then apply them in a given situation. That's the best that I can offer as far as how you go about pattern drafting and doing these projects on your own with nothing to go from. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. If I'm being honest, I did run into a major problem with this by the end, and I'm going to show that to you once I get to that point. I'll explain the issue that I faced. And an expert, if I ever have an expert watch this video, I'm sure they can tell you right now what the problem's going to be. Okay, so now I'm beveling the edges. I'm not going to bevel the bottom because it's going to fit up against the plastic case, and there isn't any point. Oh, I should say I trimmed the edge. Now I'm going to do the beveling. I start by sanding it, sound all the sides and the edges and the rounds. And then I'll take my trusty Dremel tool. I'll use this special stuff that I have, which I'll show you in the next video. It's not going to be in this video. Okay, I have one more thing left to do on this, and then I've done the basic leather piece. And then I can go to the next video and show how to do the dyeing, and do the edges and all that, and prep it for the next phase. So here I am mapping out where I want to put the credit card holder, because I am going to put a credit card holder here on the back of this just to be able to slide a card or two into. I have to redo the audio every time I do my videos because the sound outside in my workshop is just deafening. There's always something going on. Someone running a lawnmower, just, it's insane. So I have to do my videos and then come in a more contained environment and then redo all the audio, which is frustrating. So there I have the credit card holder opening right there. And that completes the first video on this custom cell phone case. As you can see, it looks, like a good start. I'm pleased with the result.